We are heading into Lincoln's home. I think it's over there. We have to take it. It's free, but we have to leave there.
So we're going to give a little introduction out here in front of the house while we're waiting for them to come back. Starting with the very basics. This is behind me, the original Lincoln home. It has been here since 1839 when the house was built. Now the Lincolns, they moved into this home a few years later. They bought this house in 1844 for a grand total of $1,500. Not a great sum today, but back then that's the equivalent of about $70,000 or $80,000 today. And when they did move in, the house looked a lot different because there was actually no second floor on the home when they bought it. This was just a one-story home with a attic loft and just one bedroom. So it would have actually looked a lot more like that house behind you on the other corner. Just a one-story home with one bedroom. That was not a big problem at first because it was a small family when they moved in. It was just Abraham, his wife Mary, and their son Robert, who was less than a year old. But as the years go by, Robert gets older and the Lincolns have more children. 3 more boys born in this house over the next few years. So one bedroom was no longer enough. They had to expand. They were finally able to add that second floor in 1856, about 12 years after they moved in. So something to keep in mind once we get inside is that the second floor is much newer. You'll notice differences up there like higher ceilings, bigger rooms, different styles of doors, door frames that kind of show how their status was growing over time. And then of course it continued to grow up to 1860, which is the year that Lincoln runs for president and they leave here for the White House. Now when they did leave here, they rented the house out to other families, fully intending to move back here after the White House years. As you may or may not know, Abraham Lincoln did not survive his presidency. His assassination meant that the family did not return back to this home. The house was instead rented out to other families for about 20 more years until Abraham's oldest son, Robert, gave the home to the government in 1887. It's been a state historic site since then and then given to the National Park Service from the state in 1971. So it's been preserved in one way or another since 1887. A long tradition of people coming through the house today. And of course, I bet you're all here mostly for that inside look. So we are going to head inside very shortly. As soon as we get into the house, we are going to take a left, and that brings us into the parlor. Now that is a long, fancy room. We're going to fill that room to the back and have our first stop there in the parlor. So, sound good? Any questions for me before we head? Move right about here to the middle of the room. So pardon me for just a moment. I'll park myself about right here so I can see everyone and you can all see me. Here we are, folks, officially inside the home. I think this is the best place to start because this room is where you would have been welcomed by the Lincolns if you were their guests. They held all their parties and social events here. So they wanted this room to look as nice as possible. If you look around here, thankfully a lot of that best stuff is still here. All these chairs and couches, with only one exception, are the Lincolns' original furniture pieces. Only this one rocking chair in the middle is not theirs, although it is still from that time, but they owned and sat in every other one of these chairs and couches. We've also got the shelf on the back wall, that wooden shelf there. The candlesticks back here on the mantelpiece are original, and Abraham's bookcase is there in the back corner. So a lot of great stuff to see today. All the doors on the first floor are also original. That includes these big folding doors here that can section this room into 2 halves. Now the reason that there's a big split here is that this did used to be 2 separate rooms. Before they added the second floor, the parlor was just the front half. There was a wall right here, and the back half where I'm standing used to be the bedroom, the one bedroom that the whole family shared. And that means 3 Lincoln boys were born in this room. Eddie, Willie, and Tad. Very important for them. The other most important event that takes place in here is in 1860. In late May of 1860, Abraham Lincoln was met here by a group of men from Chicago who traveled to Springfield to give him the news that he had been chosen to officially run for president. So we're standing in the room where Lincoln found out he was on the ticket for the White House. A pretty important room for American history and for our tour to begin. Very significant space. And that's just the parlor, of course. We have a lot more to see besides the fancy room here. Do you guys have any questions for me up to this point in our tour? Well, because Abraham loves cats. He will pick up strays on his way home from work, carry them in, drop them on the floor. Mrs. Lincoln wrote down in a letter that she believed Abraham's greatest hobby was collecting cats. So there you go. I like to tell everybody, please remember 2 things about Lincoln today: wrestler and cat collector, if you learn nothing else. But all that makes this my favorite room. It is where the whole family could be together, be themselves, in the same space at the same time. More of that horsehair furniture along the wall. We've got all the brick and woodwork around the fireplace is still original too. You have any further questions for me down here before we sold to a family who lived in Chicago? And then 10 years later, there was the Great Chicago Fire in 1871 that actually destroyed a lot of the original beds. Yeah. All right. So you're sitting on that blue carpet. Thank you very much. Awesome. Is that just about everybody? Okay, we've all made it? Very good. Okay, well, stepping on into here. Remember, this upstairs section of the house was all added in 1856. So we're seeing rooms built to Lincoln specifications. That means bigger bedrooms, taller ceilings, more than one bedroom. Finally, they have a room for visitors across the hallway there. But the room that we are standing in is the master bedroom. This is Abraham and Mary's. It's actually a bedroom suite. It goes back to a second room behind me, which was a status symbol of the time. If you could afford it, you gave 2 bedrooms to the man and lady of the house, not to sleep separately, just to keep all their personal stuff in. So Abraham's things are here, Mary's are back there. Her room is actually slept in by the 2 youngest boys, Willie and Tad. And if they're making a commotion or having a hard time sleeping, Mary can go right back there and look after those kids and help them get to bed. And if she's back there, Abraham would have time up here to get work done. This became a mini office for him from that little desk in the back corner. I know it's not very fancy. The desk is kind of small for a 6'4" guy to hunch over, but that is my favorite item in the home. That is Lincoln's original writing desk. He owned it for over 15 years and wrote many letters and speeches there, including his famous House Divided speech. If you've heard of that, a house divided against itself cannot stand. He wrote that speech on that little desk. The other 2 big furniture items over there are also original. The chest of drawers under the mirror and the wardrobe in the back corner, also theirs. Under those windows, you might have seen the hat and the boots. Well, those are not originally Abraham's, but they are his size. So you can see how big his feet were. He wore a size 14 boot. Pretty impressive.
Yes.
And I do have to also ask you guys one thing. What is your opinion on the wallpaper? Any strong feelings?
I love it.
Pretty cool, right? Pretty wild, a little fancy, a little busy. Whatever you think of it, love it or not, this is the only room where we do know what their wallpaper was. We found original scraps on the back layer that were still visible. We recreated that pattern, and here it is as it was when it was new. Pretty nice to see. I would have had a hard time falling asleep, but it's mostly to show off for
It
visitors.
should be available in all the gift shops.
It actually is. So not in wallpaper form, but you can get it on Christmas ornaments and diaries and stuff. Yes, check out the gift shop after this. This is Lincoln's wallpaper. Has its own cult following, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other questions, though? The oldest item in this house, it's a Todd family heirloom from Lexington, Kentucky. That dresser is older than the Lincoln home. It's about 203. So get a look at it. We're going to walk through and then fill the back hallway next.
This is Mary's house. Mary's bedroom. Mary.
Wait, these are original pieces?
So the only original ones here would be the dresser on the back wall and the little sewing table and the commode, the toilet over there.
Toilet.
The rest are antique, so they're not old, but not the actual ones the Lincolns are.
Boys' room. This is boys' room. His boys' room.
He was living here. Would have been
Lawyer. Yes, yeah. He was a congressman at one point, but lawyer was his name. Money, yes.
His income would have been around that time?
I don't know because it wasn't like a yearly salary. It would have been case by case that he got paid. And also, I will say the top to the kitchen where guests would not go. And if you're wondering about the closed door, this does not go anywhere. This is a linen closet, no way through. Same for the other closed door by the steps. That's a walk-in storage room. But besides those, we do have extra bedrooms.
So yes, backyard of his house. His original house. This is Abraham Lincoln's home, and all the neighborhood, are protected in this community. So just like 2 or 3 blocks.